Hi there. On our podcast today, we're talking to Rob and Connie Lawson from Sweet Ashley's Chocolate about the highs and lows of starting a business. Please join us. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, you can do that now. Welcome everybody to our podcast, Profit Points, where we talk to professionals, industry leaders, and other small business owners about what they see in the crazy world of running your own business. And today we have Connie and Rob Lawson from Sweet Ashley's. Welcome, guys.
How are you?
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Connie and Rob are small business owners with a retail location in Pennsylvania, and they make the world sweeter, right? So tell us a little bit about what you do there.
So we make chocolate, all different kinds of confections. We have our retail store. We also have a wholesale line that we do, and online. So we make pretty much anything you can think of in chocolate.
That's fantastic. We have experienced your chocolate, and I'll tell you, it is very good.
Fantastic.
All I can say is
Fantastic,
it is some of the best chocolate we have ever had. So, definitely hits way out of the ballpark from like Hershey's or any of those mass-produced chocolate companies. So, yeah, for sure.
Thanks. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, tell us a little bit about what led you to have your own chocolate store. What was the chain of events? Did you just wake up one day and say, yeah, I want to make chocolate? Or
Kind of.
It's been a very long journey. It started out initially when we lived in State College, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
It was kind of like a side hustle, so to speak. We wholesaled to some coffee shops in town. We came up with the name because at the time Ashley was about 8 months old.
Your daughter.
Our daughter, yes.
Yeah.
And, it was, like I said, totally a side hustle.
So you went from having this as a side hustle, like I guess you enjoyed chocolate and just started making it for yourself. Is that how that works?
No. So
I eat chocolate, but I don't make it.
So I guess it was kind of my hobby. I always just equate it to some people can play the piano and have never been taught. I just happen to know how to make chocolate. So I was on a Girl Scout tour when I was like 9 or 10 years old in the town I grew up in. And it was a small, like mom and pop chocolate shop where they made their own chocolate and they sold it at the store. So they were giving us a tour and kind of going through it. And I just kept on saying, oh, I know how to do this. I know how to do this. And I just kind of
it was like a name. It was just something.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I totally know what's going on here. So I really was probably an obnoxious 9 or 10-year-old telling this nice woman who was trying to just give us a tour and get us out that I knew what I was doing and I could make chocolate. So at the end of the tour, everyone got like a little bag of a couple pieces of chocolate. And she just handed me a chunk of chocolate and said, go home and make your own. That's
hilarious.
I was convinced that, so, and I did. And then it just kind of became my childhood hustle. Your parents would give you your Christmas money. I would make chocolate for everyone and then keep the extra money for myself for, clothes or whatever I wanted.
So you're saying you were always kind of an entrepreneur. So you were out there.
I remember. Yeah. Like one summer, my next door neighbor and we were making those pot holders.
Uh-huh.
Long time. In neighborhoods knocking on doors, selling those pot holders.
And then you turn that into chocolate. You start doing that.
Yeah. So I think it's just always kind of been there. Like,
wow.
Doing that. So once we had Ashley, I was doing it. And then when we moved here, I went from working in restaurants to a pharmaceutical job. So I didn't have a lot of time to make chocolate. So there was like a little hiatus there, but I don't know, something I've always known how to do.
Yeah.
I had to
So you start making this chocolate. It was a side hustle. At what point then did you say, you know what, we're doing this all in, or at least Connie, maybe you're doing this all in? Like what? At what?
So at the pharmaceutical company I worked for, I was working in clinical trials, and I just happened to get a clinical trial that was juvenile HIV patients.
Okay, and that was a little hard.
Well, Ashley and I would spend the whole weekend together. She's 4 and 5 years old. I would come into work on Monday and I would have a list of expired kids.
Yeah. Oh, and that must have been heartbreaking.
This job is important and it needs to be done. Like, I'm never going to take that out. I'm not the person to do that job.
Right.
I never met these kids. I didn't know them. They were a series of identifier numbers.
But it still hits you so hard. Yeah.
I just was not emotionally equipped to handle that job.
So you were looking for an out, right? You were looking for a way to like do something do something you knew.
Yeah, I didn't want to. Monday mornings I'd be crying going into work. I didn't want to know. Like I didn't want to know. So I was just complaining to him. I got to get out of this. I can't do this, but I didn't want to go back to the restaurant business.
Right.
I was being in restaurant management. I just didn't want to do it. And so we had Christmas at his parents' house and we were really busy, at the pharmaceutical job. And I didn't make chocolate for anyone that year for Christmas. And he's got this uncle, Uncle Frank. He is a doctor, but to give you a proportion of him, he's a doctor for the WWF when they come into the area. Big, huge guy. He's just a big presence, and we didn't give him his chocolate, and he banished us from the room
until you produce.
Yes, onto this couch. And every time we try to go up and get food, or we try to go get another drink, Uncle Frank is like yelling at us and kicking us out of the room. Like he just didn't want to see us or deal with us or anything. Rob and I are on his parents' blue couch in the formal living room where we have been ostracized to, and I'm just like, all right, if I can find a spot to do this, we need to do this because this is a grown man. Complete meltdown.
Yeah.
Chocolate.
Yeah. So there was a desire for it.
Right. And I was like, okay, if he's going to melt down over this, there's got to be some sort of way to move this forward. Like, how do we, and just
took the leap
in June. So that was the Christmas. December, yeah. So that was December of 2004.
Yes.
Yeah. June of 2005, we kind of went and got our business name, our business license. We were kind of tinkering with the idea of maybe doing like farmers markets, something like that. But we didn't really have like a plan. And if you're familiar with Royersford, so they closed the bridge in between the two towns.
So Royersford is a small little town that has a main street and a lot of activity. Just for people that are not in this area, they have a pretty good population of stores and things on Main Street there. So yeah,
and they had just gone through this bridge closure, and I had never been into Royersford. I lived in Spring City and would take the back roads into the pharmaceutical company. The bridge was closed down for I think almost 2 years or something. The day the bridge opened, I took a half day off of work and I drove into Royersford to see what it was all about. And there was this empty store there that had just gone out of business. And I looked inside. I was like, that is a perfect candy store. So I called the owner of the building and he's like, well, what do you want to do here? And I said, I want to open a candy store. And he said, when my parents bought the building in 1972, it was a candy store.
Oh, amazing. It was like meant to be.
So I'm like, okay. And I think like 2 days later, we had a lease and we were opening it. No business plan, no thought.
Did that feel like a whirlwind of like craziness? Like, what the heck are we doing?
Well, I was like, come on, it was meant to be. Look, it's supposed to be a candy store.
It's all signs.
Candy store for 30 years. It can do it again. Like that was my level of thought. Oh, it was a candy store once before. It can do it again. Everything's fine. I dove in. Yeah.
That's awesome.
A year later, my father-in-law jumped in and helped. And between him and Rob, they kept the store open, and myself, and probably a year.
About a year, yeah.
I quit my job at the pharmaceutical company.
Yeah.
So and went full time.
So at that point, when you opened that store, were you making everything in the store? Were you still kind of doing it at home? How did you?
Yeah, we were still at home. We were, 3 years?
2 years.
2 years out of our certified kitchen at our house. And as it was getting busier, there just wasn't any more kitchen left.
Fortunately,
no room.
Kitchen.
Yeah, we had a huge kitchen at our house.
In that 2-year period, though, we acquired some additional equipment,
Mm-hmm.
as we were growing, and we couldn't hold any more in our kitchen. So we leased a space in downtown Spring City.
Okay.
That became our production. We were in that space for
5 years.
about 5 more years. Yeah. And then we moved from there to Limerick for our production.
So the retail and the production, you ended up combining into a one space in a different location.
No.
Not yet.
Oh, not yet. Oh my gosh.
Sean, I wish.
That's the dream. That's the end goal. I'm hoping in the next 5 years to bring that all together, where the manufacturing and the retail can all be in one nice big glass wall. People can see the chocolate being made, bring in some, return the favor to those future 9 and 10-year-olds where they can come and see people make chocolate, that kind of. I'm not there. I'm not there yet. Now it's the hunt for the space for that. So it's been from the start 2 separate facilities. There's always been the store where we package everything, and then the manufacturing where we make everything. So everything comes into the store in bulk boxes, and then we package it, cup it, do whatever we do with it. So it will be nice to have that all together.
One central spot, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess, the what I hear a lot in people that are having their own business is they kind of ease into things. It's like a stepping process, and it keeps changing. It's ever changing, and you're constantly tweaking. And so you weren't looking at, this huge location with this huge facility. You started in your kitchen in a little tiny, retail store. Even talking about going to farmers markets and stuff where it was much more manageable than being, full on jumping into something that's huge.
I can't imagine doing that. Like all of those steps felt so huge at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now you look at them and they were just small risks, but all of this entrepreneurship is a risk.
It is.
You have to kind of weigh each step, as you go. And, they seemed huge.
Yeah.
And now in hindsight, they look like tiny little things, but it
was all new stuff too. So you were like
huge.
And we were very naive. Yeah,
I had besides me being able to tell if chocolate is in temper by looking at it, I had no clue what I was doing.
You just knew how to make chocolate.
And we were very naive too.
Oh yeah.
When we opened the first store, we figured we could open that store with maybe about
I think it was like $20,000.
Between $20,000 to $30,000 total. $25,000 later, we were up and running.
Yeah.
Undercapitalized at that.
Yeah.
So you're saying is shoot higher for what you need.
Well, yeah. And just don't know.
So many unexpected things that
can come up
that we had no idea. For a really good example that you would never think of is that our building on Main Street faced the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
One of the enemies of chocolate is sunlight.
faces the wrong way. We did it twice.
We did it twice.
Not the third time. You won't do it the third
I will
time.
not do it the third time.
So when we moved in, here we set up a great display. We're getting ready to open our very first day. So the night before, we staged the window with baskets and stuff.
All this chocolate in the window.
Come in the morning time, and it's all melted.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. That's so much product too. Oh my God.
Now,
We did it twice. We made that mistake twice.
But you didn't do it a third time. So that seems to be your MO.
Are you sure you want to interview me for this?
Hey, we all make mistakes.
Right?
Yeah.
With that being said, all of a sudden now we had to get the windows tinted, right? But we wanted a special tint where people could still see in.
Uh-huh.
I think that cost around $3,000.
Oh, that was an expense you were not prepared
that
for.
we were not planning on. Well,
and it didn't
we
work.
put the tinting on, and the tinting didn't do enough.
Oh no!
The next thing you know, we are spending another $3,500 for an awning.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So right there is $6,500 that
you did not budget for.
No,
we
not
had
at all.
no idea. And how would we know?
Yeah.
There's no way that we would have known.
Yeah.
Learned that
you learn
a lot of hidden things.
Sure.
Fortunately, when we moved our store to our current location, after having 12 years in our previous store, we have an idea of numbers. Which, if we ever open a second store, it'll be a whole lot easier.
This one
you're ironing it all out.
Yeah. I joke about the fact that we didn't know, but we did know. So we knew we were going to have to make a plan for those windows, which is why they've got all those great decals on there and stuff. But when we made that move, we wanted to stay as close to our old location as we could with the nice connection from the highway right there. So the spot is perfect for us.
Right. A lot of traffic, a lot of car traffic.
Yeah.
We don't live in a location that is heavily foot traffic as far as, in towns or in a city. So we rely on easy access for a lot of people that are driving in suburbia. And so,
where they don't like to parallel park.
Deal. Yeah, parking is a bigger deal.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. And, I guess it all lends itself to what's easy for the customer that you're serving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Having parking has been huge.
Yeah, exactly. So tell us a little bit about some of the struggles. I know we talked about, not having enough in your budget early on, but you've been up and running for quite some time. Have those struggles that you deal with now very different from the ones that you've had before a long time ago? Or they see some of the same struggles?
I think a lot of the struggles are different now. In the beginning, our struggles were, like I said earlier, we were undercapitalized, and we didn't have a plan. We didn't realize the costs of a lot of things, the cost of doing business for a lot. Now, our struggles are more growth related. We understand the costs, we can plan and budget, and then it's just a matter of pulling it all together.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, other than pandemic stuff where
which we can talk about how that affected you.
Yeah.
But,
and supply chain issues. Now it's supply chain.
Issues currently,
But that will pass. We'll get back to a normal again.
Right. So our struggles now are more just, I'm going to say, growing the business. I think anybody that owns a business has that same struggle. And
absolutely.
Fortunately, the business doesn't just come to you. You have to go chase it.
Invest it into getting it and the awareness of your brand. And, And then I think also as you grow too, you got to keep in line all of the costs that are associated with growing and managing that. I know people in your position, changed vendors because of that, or have been working with a certain vendor and now their terms have changed. So they have to look for something else. And so it's never going to be set it and forget it.
No, we can't just mail it in ever.
No.
That's been a challenge to say the least.
We've been through that a lot, in particular this year, with changes that companies have made with the supply chain and items like that. So we're finding new vendors. We're separating from vendors we've been with for 17 years. And but ultimately, I have to make sure that I'm good with, my values on that. I want my packaging to be made in the US.
You have certain quality standards that you want to maintain.
Right. Yeah. And so I might have been with a company for a really long time, but when those boxes are now being produced overseas, it's not
doesn't sit right with you.
Yeah, I'll find a US vendor. And we found one. They're actually closer to us. They're in Pennsylvania. So
amazing.
Yeah, which is great.
In some respects,
so it's like
to take a positive from that, in some respects, it's forced us to explore other options that might turn out to be better.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that, we can kind of get stale sometimes.
So the struggle became an opportunity for you to examine what you were doing and maybe make something fit better than had you just stayed with the status quo.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Essentially, we take the blinders off, and instead of looking ahead, we're looking all around.
Yeah. Well, that's a big struggle for small business to step back and evaluate, all of those different things and constantly, and make those changes, because you're so busy just trying to produce your product or produce your service and serve your customers, that spending time on the business in making creative changes and making good positive changes is really a struggle.
It is, Sean. It's very time consuming. There's no doubt. It's you're trying to do 40 hours worth of work in a very limited bit of time. The other side of it too, that I don't know if it's a struggle, I'd call it a struggle or not, but we also are very mindful of our customers. Who don't respond well to change. So even though I might change a box, the contents of the box might be exactly the same, but the physical appearance of the outside of the box might be a little bit different. Maybe it's different color scheme. Maybe it's slightly different size, whether it be bigger or smaller. It throws people off, which can be an issue. Even though you explain that it's the exact same
weight, same product.
It's exactly the same. It looks a little different. Sometimes people don't respond well.
I think that sampler box hasn't changed in decades. It's still that, that box that people know.
People know it. They recognize it.
Yeah. So are your customers then, I know you had very good online presence during the pandemic, and I'm sure that you have maintained that a lot. Are you shipping out to customers, and are they different than the customers that are coming into the store? Do they look different? Do they, does the online customer not really care what the coloring of the box is, or like anything about that? Like, are they different customers?
They are.
Yeah.
And it's funny.
It's a lot of gifts.
They don't seem to be as critical sometimes, I'm going to say. I don't know if it's the best word, but, now, mind you, we're not having, direct communication with those people.
Right.
So it's a little different than when somebody's in my store, maybe criticizing or giving me their feedback. Then, online they're hitting buttons and that's it. And you hope for a good review.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can tell you online shoppers are a much different animal than in-store customers in terms of dollar amount per transaction.
Oh.
And not to get off track, but we learned in the middle of the pandemic that our online sales, our dollar per transaction amount was more than double.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's even
that is huge.
For the curbside pickup, because, once the pandemic came, everything was curbside for almost a year.
Mm-hmm.
So we kept the curbside pickup. It works well for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Want to take their kids out of the car, that they want to get you know what I mean? So we still do the curbside pickup. And even when they're buying online for curbside pickup, it's a little bit, it's higher. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I mean, it's great for you because I think that, people, are expanding what they're purchasing from you and they are enjoying it. I mean, it is a product that is enjoyed. It's not, a bad thing. So,
right.
It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's definitely, I mean, it's a weird phenomenon.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time trying to figure it out because we were confused.
Well, when I do curbside pickup for like groceries, I spend less than I'm in the store.
In the store, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I spend less. But I can see how, maybe buying chocolate online, you're like, oh yeah, let me do that now. And I might as well get it now. And instead of, splitting up my purchases between now and next week or something like that.
What we found is that people, when they're shopping online, at least with us, they're not on the clock, meaning they can put things into the shopping cart, step away.
Got it.
They actually will look at more items.
Interesting.
They'll check out everything.
Yeah.
When people come into the store, well, they're on the clock. They want to get in, get out.
Yeah.
So maybe they just go directly to what they had on their mind and don't do any impulse buys.
We have what they call like a high conversion rate of what they call abandoned shopping carts.
Oh, okay.
So like if somebody starts a cart and then they walk away from it, after like 16 hours, we'll send them like a little reminder email. Hey, you have some stuff in the cart.
Yeah.
They'll add a couple more things and send in the order. The conversion rate on that, according to Shopify, the statistics are pretty good for us.
That's awesome.
That's great.
So, but I think they, like he said, they're not on the clock. They may know Mother's Day is coming up, but maybe they're trying to figure out who they're seeing, and are they sending one gift to one location, one gift to another? They might be trying to like work some of that out, and then they come back on and order. So, which is great. And we still ship in the summer, so which is nice. A lot of companies don't ship.
Yeah, that can be an issue because of that. Yeah, daggone it, sun again.
Yes, the heat. But we do. It just needs to be 2-day. We only ship Monday through Wednesday. Thursday we'll ship if it's a 1-day ship and we know it's going to get there. Ice packs, inflation, coolers, all kinds of stuff. But we do get it there. And, I know there's a lot of people in the industry that don't. It's a risk, but we've been pretty blessed to, it's that pharmaceutical side. Again, when I left there, I got some pack outs on how to ship stuff in the summer.
Oh, nice. So you learned some stuff to
I got some knowledge enrolled. Yeah. Yeah. So
I guess nothing's lost, right? We just learn from every experience.
but it's a skill that you gain to help your business that your competitors don't have, which is
absolutely.
which is valuable.
Yeah, when you're shipping medicine, especially in like trials, they have to stay within a certain temperature range.
Mm-hmm.
So these packouts are designed to stay within temperature ranges. And so I spent some time there learning how to do those packouts.
That's amazing. And you brought it with you. So that's awesome.
I did. Yeah.
So is there any advice that you would give like somebody who's just starting out, not necessarily in the chocolate industry, but any small business owner that, just from your experience, like maybe what you would have done differently or you would have thought about a little bit differently looking back on it?
I think you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And I think you have to be forgiving of yourself of that. Don't let it like knock the wind out of your sails too much.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get into that mindset that this is for somebody else and I can't handle it. And look, I've like, flushed, $14,000, in mistakes or whatever it might be. I just think you just have to say, oh, let's not do that again.
Let's not do that. Let's pick up and move on.
And move forward. And an accountant probably isn't going to like this piece of advice, but
let me hear it.
I think the books are wrong, where they say like after 5 years, if it doesn't work, you should, be done with it or whatever. We were still at 5 years, not turning a profit, at the 5-year mark. And statistically saying you should at that point, fold up at that point and call it.
I think you feel it in your gut, whether or not that would be right or wrong.
And our numbers were increasing constantly. So it's never like we were
growing the entire time.
It was growth the entire time. We even had an increase in, a little increase over, the first downturn in 2008. COVID was a wash, so I'm not upset about that. So the numbers were going in the right direction, but there's equipment and there's mistakes and there's whatever, stuff happens. And it doesn't look great on paper, but how do you like?
5 years wouldn't have been enough time.
Wouldn't have been enough time for us.
Yeah, I hear you. 7
to 9 years.
There was a move in there when you're moving in manufacturing and now you're taking on
huge
rent, and then we had to buy additional equipment. So on paper, I think people would have probably folded us up at the 5-year mark.
But some of that stuff you could say, okay, we have to kind of reset because now we're starting we're in a new retail space. We're in a new manufacturing space. So you kind of reset some of those expectations too.
Yeah.
And you did some automation when it came to some of your, a lot of things actually, right? So not only the back office and your inventory, right? That takes a lot of work and a lot of effort and costs for software. But you also did stuff with your chocolate and your making and how the chocolate is being made. Helped, you bought a lot of equipment in order to make that easier on yourself to accommodate the growth that you were seeing in the sale of all the chocolate that you were selling. You couldn't have physically done that yourself.
No, not at all.
Doubt. As an example, the one bigger machine that we have, unfortunately cost us in the end is close to $100,000.
Yeah, that's huge.
But you have to do it in 5 years. In
5 years. Now, on the flip side of that, as Connie was hand dipping all the chocolate previously, she could do that on average about 175 pieces an hour. With the machine I have, if I have 2 people working the machine, I can do over 2,000 pieces an hour.
Oh my gosh, that's huge.
And the reality is, if I had a third person working the machine at the same time, I could probably pull, 3,000 plus pieces an hour. But we had the expense of $100,000 piece of equipment. And once again, from a profit standpoint, it hurt for a while.
Sure.
And
that's a long-term investment.
That's a long-term investment, no doubt.
Yeah.
But I think people need to realize that they have to be ready to take that step back in order to take the steps forward later.
And don't wait 3 years to get an accountant.
Oh, that's good advice. Don't wait.
Don't wait. Biggest mistake. Number one biggest mistake I made was my father-in-law loves accounting, but he's not an accountant.
Mm-hmm.
Loves accounting. And so he really wanted to be involved in the bookkeeping and the accounting and all of that stuff. And my first 3 years as a good daughter-in-law, I let him do it. And then I needed automation. I needed QuickBooks. I needed an account. I needed that.
Yeah, you needed more.
I should have never played the nice role of daughter.
Well, many times you hear that people want to do it themselves, which is fine. Doing your own accounting is good. I think you understand your numbers a little bit better. But it is another job. It's not going to be a cakewalk. You're going to have to learn how to do it.
Chocolate walk.
Yeah, right.
Chocolate walk.
I think there's a couple things in there the accountant probably would have,
wanted to kill us.
Yes. Yeah.
Do something different, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah. It was more so directional.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we were doing anything wrong. Incorrect.
No, the accounting was good. He loved it. He was obsessed with it. He loved
all the
it.
tax laws.
Yeah. Wow. Gave him a job to do.
He studied.
He loved it. He loves it. He doesn't do it.
Mind you, at that time, everything was in a ledger.
Yeah.
There was nothing computerized. It was the old school green manually. And so for things like tracking our production, it was not there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you grow when you don't know what you're supposed to make?
Yeah. Well, this is empty, so maybe we'll make that.
Right. And forecasting for the next year. That's great. I can put numbers in a ledger book, but
they don't mean anything.
Yeah.
You don't see trends. You don't see.
Don't see anything.
You can't see day over day, year over year, month over month. You can't see any of that. I couldn't, he would get me the information when I would say, oh, how much did I spend with blah, blah, blah vendor last year? He would ultimately get it for me, but it's not the same as being able to pull it up in QuickBooks and have it right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
See that. So, yeah.
We are so thankful that you are here with us today. And I really enjoyed having the conversation and learning about your journey. And Sean, did you have anything that is sitting on top of your mind that you want to ask Connie and Rob while you have them?
I mean, we could talk, for a long time
hours.
About all this. Yeah. It's good to hear, get some backgrounds of where you came from and how this came to be. So
yeah,
it's great.
A lot of good information for other small business owners.
Oh yeah,
I was going to say. You go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
my biggest learning experience from all this is learning to be humble enough to hire the right people to do things. An accountant, great example. A marketing person, a great example. An IT person if you need it. Because we tried in the beginning to do everything ourselves.
And that's so hard.
We're not experts at everything. So
yeah, it's hard when you have limited budget. You try to do as much as you can yourself, but you're gonna fail in a lot of those things because you just don't have the expertise.
And that failure ends up being more expensive than if you just made that investment early on.
Yeah.
What I mean?
You're the typical small business. You've had all these mistakes. You've had successes. You learn, you grow, and you just
keep changing,
keep adapting, and that's the typical small business model.
It is, yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Thank you.